Dramatic entrance. What's up? Hi. I have spent the better part of a week coding. Literally just been cooped up in my apartment doing nothing but like looking at a computer screen for hours and hours on end. And I look back at the content that I recorded. Not very exciting, I'll be honest with you. Unless you're the type of person who's actually excited by the aesthetic of coding and whatnot. If you don't understand the context of my code, then you will not understand at all. So, it is pretty. It is quite pretty, but that's pretty much it. So then, it really made me reevaluate what I wanted this video to be about. And I thought to myself, like, hey man, have I actually ever spoken about what my research topic is? And no. Should my proposal get accepted, my research topic is a climatological and dynamical study of co-occurring cutoff flows in the southern hemisphere. It's a pretty cool sounding topic. I know, it sounds freaking epic. In order to actually understand what a co-occurring cutoff flow is, actually need to understand what a cutoff flow is, which works perfectly because this past week there actually was a cutoff flow that occurred over South Africa. And I'm gonna play the video of me explaining it when it happened right about. It's been cold and rainy for the past two days now. There's a platform called Windy that shows these things. So I think I should just show you what they look like and what it is that I'm trying to do. Okay. This is a cutoff flow, right? This right here, this bad boy over here, this is what I've been trying to find. What you'll notice is that these are the closed loops, right? These are the closed loops. So it has a very closed circulation, right? I don't know if you can see the vectors very well, but like there's air flowing around it like this, you see? So that's air circulating the center of the cutoff flow. What you'll also notice is that here at the center, you have the lowest pressures. Oh, the shading, that's the temperatures. But here, this darker sort of color, this darker purple, that's where you find the coldest temperatures. So that is showing you that you have the coldest temperatures at the core of the cutoff flow. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go slightly closer to the surface. And what you'll see is that it maintains this form throughout. Right, and what you see here it's still purple. Here it's getting warmer. However, here it's still cold. And this is a consistent trend, right? And at this point, we're at about 800 hectopascal, which is quite close to the surface. Here we're very close, and there it's still very much apparent. So what this is telling us is that this is a very deep cutoff flow that extends pretty much towards the surface. You can see it even at the surface. So there's a good correlation between the vertical extent of a cutoff flow, or the depth of which a cutoff flow exists, and the intensity associated with it, such that the deeper a cutoff flow extends to the surface, the more intense it is. So that explains why it has been so cold and so rainy for these past couple of days. It is because of this bad boy over here. But I think this goes to show that more than anything, that we use the physical characteristics of these weather systems in order to identify them. That these are not just like things that we pull out of thin air. These are things that we observe with them. So you find these closed contours. You find this geopotential minimum. You find the cold temperatures. You use the wind fields, and then you classify them, and then you detect them, and then you don't. This is only for one day. Like this is like a snapshot. Imagine like this is happening currently. So then what we have is that data that dates all the way back to like 1979, and we're gonna find all of those cutoff flows, right, that have all these similar characteristics. But beyond, because this is over South Africa, that I want to find them for the entire southern hemisphere. So they can occur here, they can occur there as well. And I want to find them, all of those that occur throughout the southern hemisphere. Right? But yeah, my algorithm is trying to find this throughout this entire southern hemisphere over the past decades of work. That's what I'm trying to do. Exciting. So at this point, past me should have explained to you what a cutoff flow is. I hope you did a good enough job because you can't trust that guy, bro. Now, with the understanding of what a cutoff flow is, the basis of my research or my master's research is what we're calling or what we're coining as a co-occurring cutoff flow. A cutoff flow, but with multiple cores. Now I think you might be curious as to what that looks like, so I'm just gonna and cow, bow. There it is. These are systems that I found in my honors year. So the contours are the 500 hectopascal geopotential height fields, and the shading are the temperature anomalies. So the blue corresponds to cold temperatures, and then the red corresponds to warmer temperatures. Or at least anomalously low and anomalously high temperatures. Now, notice something. See here, those two close contours, over South Africa are quite clear. But look here. I mean, you still get more or less the same thing, but it's just not as clear. While there, you see what seemingly is almost like 3 centers. Then you get this one. This one seemingly has 4. And that. See there, and then I think this one is about this one. This one is my favorite, right? Because this one is seemingly the most intense one, right? And there's about 22 of them. As you notice, maybe if you have noticed that those were only looking over South Africa. If you notice how differently they look, they might all have similar characteristics of a cutoff flow, but there are differences. Some of them are not as well formed, so that is the importance of using an objective detection algorithm, because it removes any biases that I may have in the identification process. It looks at it essentially, I want to say empirically. It looks at it without the opinion of the researcher. Now, given these, to our knowledge, they have not been previously documented yet, or at least formally. So they serve as the basis of my research. I aim to find them and create what is called a climatology of them. So climatology is pretty much determining where and when they occur frequently. Cutoff flows typically like occurring during the transition seasons, meaning spring and autumn. Hence why we did get a cutoff flow, and it's autumn. And there are certain areas they like to occur. So for instance, cutoff flows typically occur over land. I want to find that do also co-occurring cutoff flows occur during the transition seasons, in that kind of way. And where do they most occur? Are they maybe occurring more in South Africa, maybe in Australia, maybe in, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But after that, that's when the fun stuff starts. Because that's when I am going to look at diagnosing co-occurring cutoff flows using a pair of very cool equations. I won't give much detail about them now. I will at a later stage, if I actually do use them. But in essence, if you look at a cutoff flow, and you are essentially able to see that at the core of the cutoff flow, you see an energy center, a kinetic energy center. And using the budget equations, you are able to see where that energy comes from. So that allows you to determine how a cutoff flow forms, using these budget equations. They are quite robust equations, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to use them to diagnose co-occurring cutoff flows the same way they have been used for normal cutoff flows. And in that way, I'll be able to determine how these cutoff flows form. Yeah, that forms the climatological and dynamical study of co-occurring cutoff flows. And so, yeah, original research, I'm saying. So my assumption and my approach in trying to find these cutoff flows, these co-occurring cutoff flows, my approach is that I think of them as being a special variation of all cutoff flows. Meaning, if I can find all cutoff flows objectively, then and create a database. Within that database of all cutoff flows, I should be able to find these, right? Given that, that is why at this point I am still trying to find all cutoff flows objectively. And then I'm going to implement extra steps within my database to then find these, right? So finding them is at the crux of everything, at the crux of my research. If I can find them, everything else, I mean, won't be smooth sailing, but I am actually working towards something tangible. So, yeah. Now, that's back to the video, I guess. Okay. So this is pretty much the same day as I uploaded episode 2. So I did figure it out. I figured out what my problem was, and I understand now that I was allocating too many variables to memory, which is something that's very careless. Because when you work with a lot of data, you need to keep into consideration that you have a limited amount of memory and storage, and so that kind of motivated me to actually talk about why this can be considered as a big data problem. So we have data available for every hour of the day, from 12 a.m. up until 11 p.m. So all 24 hours of the day. For cutoff flows, however, you don't need to look at all 24 hours. we're effectively able to resolve these weather systems looking only at 4 time steps at 12 a.m., 6 a.m., 12 p.m., and then 6 p.m. So those 4 time steps, we said that those are enough. Now, what I'm showing here are the closed contours that I found only at one level, right, for each time step, right? Now, when I created this code, I created it because I wanted to test whether or not it works. So when I did that, I only looked at the first 2,000 time steps, right? So 4 hourly time steps every day. So I looked at the first 2,000 of that time period. So that should maybe get up to about like 1970, from like 1978 to start up until like 1979, somewhere there, right? So now consider that that's the only 2,000 time steps. If I were to look at the data from 1978 up until 2024, that is about 68,000, closer to 69,000 actually. And that is just trying to find the closed contours. It's done. So that was about 2 minutes. That was just trying to find the closed contours. And what this is showing is that it's only showing you the first 5 closed contours. There could be hundreds of them on one surface at one time step. So now you can imagine if ever you had to do that manually, that would be painstaking. Right, that would be a brutal process, and that's the beauty of why we need to implement objective detection algorithm, because we're able to use the power of computers to automate these things, right? So that you spend less of your time to find these things and more of your time actually trying to explain them. And I'll be quite honest with you, this is not even a very computationally heavy process. I can confidently say that some of these processes can take days. I've had scripts that I've needed to run for days. I've had scripts that I've needed to run for, no, only days. I haven't gotten that far. Once you get into really technical stuff like simulations and stuff, it can easily take you months. In fact, the facilities at UUP, the University of Pretoria, They have computers that are never shut off, specifically because people are constantly, well, rather frequently running scripts on them. So if you were to switch off the computers there, you would be destroying months of processes or months of computing that a person has done. But yeah, my code works for now. Just need to, because now I have the closed contours. Now I just need to find the center and then store all those centers in another database. So it's Sunday. Okay. I've been working on this database, trying to curate it and make it as clear cut as possible for the past week. So I have created a database of what is potentially cutoff flows. Let me show you what the database looks like. So it looks like this. This is the time step. That's 1978, December 3rd at 12 a.m. That's the longitude and that's the latitude of the core of the cutoff flow. And then that's the center, that's the geopotential height at the core. So initially, I was going to write up scripts to plot these fields of like the geopotential height and whatnot, and then temperature anomalies and whatnot. But then I thought to myself, like, oh no, wait, I actually have software that just allows me to insert this data and then visualize what it looks like. So I was like, oh well, I'll just do that. I completely forgot about it for some reason. So what I did was that I took the first time step that I found within the database, and this is the field. And what do you notice over here? That right there. That is more or less at the latitude and longitude of the core. As is in the database. This software that allows me to not only look at the date at the plots itself, but at the data. Now this is how the data looks. Right? This is how the data looks. And so in theory, what I should be able to find at minus 43.5. In theory, what I should be able to find at minus 43.5 and 171 right over there. And that is the core of the cutoff flow. And notice how it is lower than most of these. Right, so that one is 101.72. So that is valid. That is actually valid. So as far as the geopotential height goes, as far as coordinates go, as far as that is exactly where the cutoff flow core is. That corresponds to that. Somewhere around here. So my database has found a cutoff flow. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna go through maybe like another 10 of them. Let's make it 20. And I'm gonna see whether or not it was able to find these cutoff lows in the same way that it did find off this one. And if it did, then I know that this database is legitimate and I can move on to the next step. So so far it seems very positive. I was a bit worried as to the values of that I'm finding here compared to the values that I'm finding there. Then I remembered to myself, like, no man, it's because there's a difference between geopotential and geopotential height. So the data here in its raw form, it's in geopotential, right? So you need to convert it into geopotential height by dividing by 9.8, which is the gravitational constant. Values that I'm finding here on this database for these values here are these values here, but divided by 9.8. A bit hesitant there, but I was like, oh yeah, nah, man, forget it, you know. But yeah, no, so far, it's good.